Okay, you are welcome once again to GD Streams Animation Group, and I want to appreciate everybody for their wonderful comments. I gotten so much from all the comments we've been having on the group, and I know the audio might not be too okay, so hopefully on this platform I will also get a feedback on how good the audio is. Okay, so we'll be starting with um, the menu bar. So I would just like to open the software. Remember, we're talking about different aspects of animation, which we are actually dwelling on the 2D animation aspect. There's also traditional animation, which is frame by frame animation, and that one actually has the validity of you being or you having this perfect skills of drawing. You understand how drawing is supposed to be like. Okay, I told you earlier that I actually didn't have much formal education in art. I was self-taught, but so it doesn't really matter the kind of background you have in art. Just let's grow and get PDFs, get video tutorials, and there are several great guys out there that makes very wonderful content. Okay, so we could see the first pop up when you open Moho Pro 12. You could see it gave some few examples of how animation actually looks like. You could see all these timelines here, all these action keys on timeline, on the timeline. You could see how wonderful it's looking. All right, so you could start. Let's just check this one out. Yeah, which is quite. This is wonderful. Okay, now actually we're going to talking about this menu bar today, and hopefully we get the best. Okay, let's start. Now, um, we have our file, we have our new. Now, new definitely we know it from different projects or different softwares that we've worked on project that we used to work on projects, obviously. Then we have this new file, creating new file. So we also have the same thing here. So it's very similar to that of Microsoft Word, that of other softwares. Okay, so we could, the new actually creates a very wonderful workspace in which I'm actually using my middle mouse button to scroll up and down right now. So um, it's practically the same thing with other software such as Photoshop, CorelDRAW, the list continues. But this being a vector-based software, not necessarily a bitmap or a image-based software. But there's a question that was asked earlier that can Photoshop files be imported into Moho and used to animate? Yes, you can import it inside Moho as a reference file, definitely. Reference meaning you can, if you want to actually edit the Photoshop files, you can um, reference it back to Photoshop. So Moho recognizes Photoshop or Adobe softwares, so it can go back into that. You can go back into that particular file, edit everything you need to edit, and it will reflect back on the file um, you are working with, those Photoshop files. So it will edit it. So it would apply the correction you made on the Photoshop file. Okay, so now we've created a new document. I would like to call it document, which is actually workspace. You could see this big environment. That's a workspace, and this is actually the work area. Now, in this work area, you could see this blue line, or is that actually a blue line? Probably like a gray looking like line. Um, then this actually depicts or connotes the area where the character is actually going to be showing. So you could actually have endless things around here, and when you render it out, it just renders whatever you put into the work area. Okay, so you're having your tools, all these your countless number of tools. Yeah, they can actually be counted. Okay, so but don't let it look countless in your eyes anyway. Okay, so we're having um inside the menu bar we have a new workspace, new form templates. We have open. You have recent files that you've worked with before. You can open it up. You can close every project you're working on currently. You could save, you know, um, you could set your projects. This I actually use this first. After I open my new document or new file, I go straight down to this place to set my project setting. You could see currently is at 4K Ultra HD. Um, the previous versions of Moho doesn't have this 4K Ultra. So you have to take note of that just in case you don't see it. I work with this because it's the output for the rendering is actually very okay. Now you could see list of other things here. You could have probably seen this with or in other softwares like After Effects, Premiere Pro, or thereabouts. So I'm working with Ultra 4K. This is the size, 3840 by 2160. Initially I worked with this 720p, but you could actually set after clicking on the one you want. You can actually set it as default so that anytime you come back to work, you will always see um, all these settings. Now you could see the frame rate, which is 24. You can see the start to finish. Blah, blah, blah. You could just set this and set it as default, you know. And let's leave all this for now. Could come back to it later. Which is the depth of field, the render style. Just leave it at normal. Just leave it as normal, and all these tags, just leave them. Okay, so you could see all these tools, the toolbox. I would like to call this the toolbox. They call it different names. Um, you could see this side, which is where the style is, where the colors are actually at. Um, yeah, this definitely works with layers, just like Photoshop. You could see how we have different types of settings here, or things you can apply to your work, like creating new layers, almost very similar to Photoshop. You could use this to create new layers, layer one, layer two. You could use this to create a group, you could group with selection, group, then bone switch, particle, and text, you know. Okay, so we have um, several other things like preview animation. Okay, like for instance, I am working on this layer one now. You could delete this. Working on this layer one now. Probably I decided to go to one of the tools to create a circle. Okay, just anyhow, just don't worry. And probably I want to make this, you know, have a kind of property. Okay. All right. Now, actually, I just created this. I have not taught you how to do that, or you could have seen how I went about it. I created this, and um, that's actually created in this layer one, you know. So definitely, I could duplicate that layer and have two of this, that's on the layer. And also I could animate this, just just for show, just like this. Take it to another frame, take it here, let's see how you go. You see? That's actually called smooth animation. So I wouldn't get to that yet. So I'm just showing you how the layer works. So actually we're having this layer on top, this other layer, layer 2 on layer 1. Then you could change the color, this, you could change the color to something else. Actually, this is a style. Okay, so we have these two objects. Okay, now um that's that about layers. But then I will explain better on that later. I'm just trying to show you how this workspace looks like. Now we go to our file and we go to preview animation. Remember we did a very short, wow, okay, that's I changed the color on the timeline, so it's going to actually animate the color also, which is quite cool. All right, now I'd like to just render this out from this point to this point. Let's play it. All right, not looking good, but it's for a start, it looks okay. Now I'm going to render this out from file, then preview animation, which is going to open my player and show how the idea. It's not looking that good, but you get the idea. It's less than a second, so it's going to do that. But if probably I stretch it out to 1 second, okay, okay, you can see that it's much slower. Okay, so I noticed this Control Shift R for the shortcut, so you could just Control Shift R. You could see that. Now you could see the animation because actually spanning over 1 second. So the animation is actually 1 second long. All right. Now, um, so we're having normal preview just to preview your rendering. That's actually when it will show you the quality of your actual frame, the high to the highest quality. But then if you want to render this as an animation that you did, you could export the animation. Okay, so you preview this, you could see how clear it's looking like. It's not having um, rough edges or anything. It's looking very, very clear. Unlike when you do Control Shift R, this is actually looking like a polygon, while the other one is looking very rough or unclear. That's the video. But then if you want to do a full rendering, then you could go to your export animation here. It could actually do a full system rendering, then you could set um, this. Now that this is actually going to, I say full system rendering because it's going to actually tell on your RAM. You have your MP4 size or AVI, and you have the quality, you know, and you have the name, export to, which folder do you want it to export to. You have several other settings here that you could change, you know, the alpha channel, meaning the light transparency or the opacity of, or you could render at half dimensions, you okay, and some other things there that are really cool, you know. So the entire animation, probably you want to render out the entire animation. Okay, so okay, this is actually the default, you know. So you could change that, you could change it and set as default as we did for the project settings. Okay, let's cancel that. Now, I think that's that about. Then you could upload also to YouTube, to Facebook when you're connected. Um, but it's a cracked version, so I don't think. But it's also very good to get to buy the software, to get the exact software, to buy it, to pay for it. So you get some nice, cool features. You know, very cool features. Actually, check for get the license and likes to use it. You know. Okay, so um yeah, Moho is actually very good software. It makes 2D animators works very easy, and I really prescribe Moho for so many 2D startup animators. And yeah, majority of them are coming back with um, wonderful comments about using Moho. Okay, so I'd like to move on to the edits. Edit here we have the undo, we have the redo, we have the cut. You could actually cut something, Control X, you know. Okay, I'm on the timeline. You can cut. Now, one thing is all the animation, all the things you do on the screen without animation. That probably you want to edit a point, you want to make a happy face, you know, with a teeth or something, you know, you do that on frame zero. You don't do it inside the timeline. It's not going to allow you to do it inside the timeline. So try to do it on frame zero. You know, that's your initial point. That's where no animation is being done. So okay. So probably you want to do something like this. Yeah. Probably you want to delete something, you want to change something, you want to edit something, you have to come to zero, you know, to edit. Okay? So, um, okay. Now that's cut. You could actually cut something, you know, Control X, Control V, and paste back. You want to copy a layer, you want to select all, Control A, you know, you want to select everything, you know. Probably you want to select all the points, you want to select all the bones, you want to select anything that is on the same layer. Then you do the normal Control A. Okay, those are familiar with other softwares. Control A actually works as the same way it works in every other software. It works here too. Okay, so we have draw. You know, usually you use draw when you have actually gotten so serious with your work and you need to apply some additional things, and you've actually, because the major aspect of you don't always need to edit the points and likes like that. The major areas where you use all this is when probably you're working with a mesh, you're working with a photo, a picture, you're working with you know, any other task of sorts in which you have to edit some aspects. We'll get into that. You might not really understand what I'm saying now because we've not really done an example, worked on some examples. Okay, so for the bone, this will be using this majorly for, since Moho is all about using this bone, so we'll be doing very little points adjustments when we get on the timeline. You'll be doing more bone adjustments, movements, and corrections for points. Okay, so on the animation, we would talk about all this also. Then the script, we use one or two of this, you know. Then for the view, you know, you could actually activate some things. You could activate the grid, you know, for the view. You could activate, um, you know, some other things like, although they all have their shortcuts. Okay, yeah, it's good you know this the rule of thirds. in which it shows you all the workspace, the work area. Okay, where is it? Video save zone. Okay, the save video save zone, which is the actual work area. This is the save zone. You can actually position your characters or your objects inside this working save zone. You know, then the rule of thirds is actually the probably um, a kind of rule that um, video editors, video producers, video users use. So they just make sure they position their characters in this area at the thirds, then the other character around this area also. It makes it more convenient to show some other things that going on in the background, you know, or probably if something is here, that means something is coming at that particular um, character or object or whatever, you know. So I work with it once in a while, but then I just have the basic knowledge of where the thoughts are, so I just position it there. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's what we can do for now. At least I was able to explain some of this. I was able to explain some of this. I left this out. I left this out because this is where we start to use majority of all these what's it called? All these functions to apply on our objects. Then I left all this. I left all this because we start to use this to apply um, to our points and so many other things. Then also I just explained few of this, you know, just few of this. Then this, I have not explained this because all these are just basically what is here. This is the tools, the layer, your style, you know, your timeline down here. Actions, this is my action. Um, okay. Then you have your library also. I don't use that because the library actually is a very good tool when you have some things you want to extract from the library. You understand? So, and there are a bunch of things there. Moho actually is so user friendly that they packed in so many wonderful and interesting things inside this library. So you could get there, you could extract, get so many backgrounds, get some characters that are rigged, just to learn, just to practice, just to feel free to enjoy yourself. Okay, so moving on to our tools, so from the tools we start to explain most of these things and what they are used for, and explain the styles, explain the layers, explain the timeline. Just see this software as a box, like a box, and in this box you need so many things to work with inside this place. So thank you so much for listening. This is our introductory class, part 3. So yeah, basically, God bless.